Okay, welcome everybody to day 3 of the Global Geula Summit, Activating Your Purpose in Extraordinary Times. Today I am really excited to bring you Rabbi Avram R.A. Trugman. He's a wandering Jew right now. He lived in a wonderful special community which had a fire and almost every house burned down, and he's still here. I don't even know where you are. Where are you?
I'm in Sfat right now, the holy city of Sfat.
Oh my gosh, one of the best, holiest places in the universe. So bringing you that light of Israel wherever you are and whoever you are. Thank you for being on with us, even in this situation. It's just amazing, like that level of dedication to Geula and to sharing Torah with all people. It's just astounding, really exciting.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay, so we hope the cell phone that he's on is going to be good, and as always, we welcome your critique on the sound quality so we can make it better. So before we go right into this conversation, I want to just acknowledge a few people that it played a very big role in helping with the Geula Summit, and I did not have time to acknowledge them before. So basically, first of all, the Geula Summit team, who's working really, really hard to publicize the summit, to get all the details together, to communicate with the speakers, to communicate with the listeners. My husband and webmaster extraordinaire, David, who is morning to night, helping to build all the pages, helping with customer service, any tech issues, and believe me, it has not been an easy job. All the volunteers who have been spreading the summit, whether you're part of the volunteer team, if you want to be part of that, we'll put you on the WhatsApp group for spreading the summit far and wide. So let me know that if you want to. And even whether you're on that team, on that WhatsApp group or not, we really want to thank and acknowledge you. It's just extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I keep using that word because it is. Extraordinary times and an extraordinary effort. And unity is not just about, unity is such a high concept. It's talked about in the Torah. It's this unconditional love and unity, we're told, will rebuild the temple, which will be a house of prayer for all mankind, a portal between heaven and earth. I'm sure we'll get into that on this call. But unity isn't just like being nice or having nice thoughts. It's actually uniting with other people on behalf of a higher goal. That's how it really happens. So thank you, one and all. And then I want to mention just 3 names, give special mention. Of course, all the speakers who, by the way, are not getting paid, and nobody's getting paid. So consider any purchase of speaker products and downloads just as a gift, your contribution if you choose to. If it works for you, there's no pressure on that. Rabbi Trugman has some very special books and music we'll be linking up. They actually are linked up to the call. And I want to mention 3 special people. First of all, Shoshana Vander, longtime friend, visionary strategist, who suggested the Geula Summit to me at least a year ago and who has been egging me on all the time, not just for this, but for everything that I've done from way back when I did summits, to the possibility of writing a book, to she just has a very big vision. And she's holding it. And so I want to mention her. Thank you, Shoshana. I want to mention Mayan Steinberg, who is a neighbor, a good friend, an amazing artist, and an exceptional advisor who kind of got this concept. We study Torah together in a very special group of women, and in my home every Monday for several hours. And she saw the vision. She caught the vision of the summit, and she said, "You need help." And she just set up people to work with me and meetings, and has been advising us on the graphics, and we couldn't have managed without her. And then Amuna Weiner, who is the graphic artist who has at the moment's notice helped us with things that we needed, the banner for the summit, which is so beautiful, and many other things. So I just wanted to get that on the table, because all of you people, you deserve so much mention and so much acknowledgement and so many blessings for everything, and every person who's participating, whether speaker, listener, commenter, question asker. We're all unfolding this together. It's a process. It's a project of humanity. Everybody who wants to participate can. Okay, with that, without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce to you Rabbi Avram R.A. Trugman. He has 40 years experience in the field of Torah education. He was a founding family of this community that had the fire recently, Moshav Ma'or Modi'im, in 1976. And he served several years there as a director of Jewish education, which successfully ran programs for over 5,000 participants from over 25 countries around the world. He and his wife in 1988 took the position of regional directors of the NCSY in Denver, Colorado. The Trugmans returned to Israel in 1995. Like so many Jews are doing, we returned to Israel. When we say returned, we mean that our souls have returned with our bodies to this historical holy land that we'll be exploring so much about in this call. So many people, millions literally of Jews from around the world have heard the call of the soul and have come back here and helped to build not only our own lives, but the infrastructure, the businesses, the Torah learning, all of it in Israel. So we returned in 2012. Rabbi Trugman and his wife returned in 1995. That was quite a long time ago, quite a lot of building. And he is now they are together now the directors of Or Hadash, which means new light, new horizons in the Jewish experience, a dynamic transformational program that has had tens of thousands of participants. Their website, YouTube channel, and Facebook have gotten millions of views. Rabbi Trugman has visited over 45 cities worldwide, led Shabbat gatherings, given classes, performed music, served as scholar in residence together with his wife, written 17 books, and produced 7 musical discs of original music, which we are linking up. Those links to his books and music are on the website under his picture where you're listening to this, if you're not on Facebook. And you can check them out. I'm also going to be linking to those in the recap email that I'm going to send out. So really, really, really exciting. And when I asked Rabbi Trugman what he wants to talk about, he immediately said the land of Israel and its relevance to the Geula and its relevance to people worldwide, whatever background you're from. So with all of that, Rabbi Trugman, thank you so much for being with us today again. And let's just start by talking about Israel. You can start by talking about the city where you are if you want to. Let's just dig in somewhere. What brought you back here? What's special about this place? And what does it have to do with Geula and our times?
Okay, so I'm sitting, I try to make it that people could actually see this, but from where I'm sitting, I'm looking at the Sea of Galilee, and I'm actually looking at 3 countries. It's a very, very clear day today. Tzfat is one of the 4 holy cities in Israel, and it's known for its air. It's clear air because it seems you could see forever. But from where I'm sitting, I'm overlooking a second holy city, Tiberias, which is connected to water. And to my left is the Golan Heights. And beyond that, I can see Syria. And at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee, I see Jordan. So I'm sitting at the top of the world here. And that really is the role that the land of Israel has played throughout history. It's a metaphor at the top of the world, but the metaphor that has been used by Christians, by Muslims, by Jews, by Baha'is, is that Israel is the center of the world. You look on any map, and it's not just a metaphor. Israel sits between Europe, Asia, and Africa. And at least on a simple material level, that is one of the reasons that the land of Israel has played such an important part, because it was always on the caravan routes between 3 continents. And so that played itself out in history in a very material way. Anyone who controls this little sliver of land is controlling the trade links and the pathways between 3 continents. In our day, when we have airplanes and boats and all of these things, so you would think, well, okay, it's not so important. But if you open any newspaper in almost any country, little tiny Israel is just in the headlines, front page, second page, all the time. Whether it's politics, whether it's oil, whether it's war and peace, whether it's religion, whether it's high tech, medical advances, solar research, whatever it is, Israel is in the middle. And so if we're talking about Geula, about redemption, which is the purpose of this whole seminar, Israel is in the center of the unfolding, and I would even call it present and upcoming Geula, because we have, as you mentioned so well, about 120 years ago, there were maybe 40,000 Jews in Israel. Don't quote me on that, but there was hardly any Jews here in the 1860s.
There was hardly anyone here.
There was hardly anyone here.
Like Mark Twain, just it's important to say that, because, you know, with all of the horrible fake PR about Israel, Mark Twain was here and wrote in his book Innocents Abroad that he with whoever he was with walked for days and the whole place was desolate. They barely saw a single soul.
Right.
It was a drought for 1900 years. There was no water.
Right.
Nothing could grow.
And here we are, let's say 120, 130 years later, and Israel is not just a thriving country. Like I said, it is literally in the middle of everything that is happening in the world. Everyone knows the idea of BDS, of boycotting Israel. So one of the promotions against BDS is, if you don't like Israel, and then it has a list of around 50 common technological platforms or apps or computers or whatever that everyone uses. So if you want to boycott Israel, so maybe you need to turn off all of these things that were developed in Israel.
Right.
So my point is, from time immemorial, Israel has been in the center of world history, politics, and it will continue until the Geula, because the Geula must come from here. It must emanate from Israel, and that is why all the Jews coming back from the four corners of the world, this is the fulfillment of prophecy. Everyone who reads the Bible, whether it's called the Torah or the Old Testament, knows what all the prophets said. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, all of the prophets said the same thing about what would unfold in the end of days. And it was all centered in the Jewish people returning from the four corners of the world to Israel. And it is happening. So that's why I say the present redemption, because we have 1 foot in redemption already, but we don't have 2 feet.
True.
We have a ways to go. And, you know, sometimes the closer you get to your vision or your end point, the more painful it is that you're not there. Sometimes when you're very, very, very far away, it's like, okay, we're so far away, it's just not realistic. And it hurts that the world is in the shape it's in, but what can you do? But when you have 1 foot in redemption already, it's like the anticipation and the spiritual angst that we can't get both feet in sometimes hurts even more.
Go ahead.
No, that's, I'll go by your next question.
Okay, no, I want to continue on this. I want to one of the issues that I have as a host is I'm so excited about the guests that come on, that I have many questions in my head at the same time. And we won't get to all of them, but I wanted to ask you before we continue, if you can show us, is it possible without disrupting the call to show us that view that you were describing?
I definitely can try. When
Okay.
we set up the Zoom, he said he couldn't see because of the brightness, but I will try. I'm going to stand up here,
Okay.
and I'm going to turn the phone, and hopefully you can see.
So tell us what we're looking at. That's the Sea
Well,
of Galilee, obviously.
Can you see it?
I can see yes, the Kinneret in Hebrew, the Sea of Galilee.
Okay.
I can see, and the
If
land
you look
behind
this
it.
way, you could see the city of Tiberias right on the water.
And that's the second holy city.
Yeah, that's the second holy city. If you turn this way, we are looking at the Golan Heights, but in the distance is Syria.
That is really bright in that direction.
Yeah, at night, with the lights, you can tell the smaller Jewish settlements closer to us on the Golan, and the farther is Syria, and then here at the bottom of the Kinneret, to in the far distance, that is Jordan. Now I'm going to turn this way to see the most beautiful hills of the Upper Galilee. Can you see that clearly?
Pretty clearly, yeah. I mean, it's nowhere near as majestic as it is in person, but we can see at least the hills. Yeah,
rolling mountains, one after the other. And actually, if you see the building in front of us?
Yes.
The mountain in the distance is Har Tabor. It's a very, very historical place. That's where the prophetess Devorah led the battle that she won for Israel, and then she wrote a song, and it's in the book of Judges.
Wow.
So that's Har Tabor. So it's absolutely amazing from this view what you can see. I'm just going to turn this way. No, you can't see. And the other distance is Har Meron, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried. And that is a place where on Lag BaOmer, 500,000 people come to celebrate at his burial spot. He was the composer, the author of the classic text, the Zohar. And
see, you guys, it's all real. Keep going, Rabbi Trugman. I just want everybody, it's all real. It's all real. Is real.
It is very real. You know, I have to say, I've been to, like you mentioned, it's actually up to almost 50 cities now. And I wear a kippah, a head covering, which most people understand identifies me as a religious Jew. And I meet people of all faiths all the time. And I'd say 95% of them are extremely positive. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard from people, again, of all faiths, saying, it's one of my dreams is to get to the Holy Land. And because it's, and hopefully I'm going to take a few minutes to try to explain this concept of the Holy Land.
Yes.
Is that I'm going to follow up now on what I was talking about, Israel being in the center of the world.
Yes.
Economically, militarily, politically, religiously, morally, ethically. But the question is still like, what is the draw? What's the pull that someone in Australia or Canada or Europe would say, it's been my dream to come to the Holy Land? So in our tradition, what is actually happening here is there's a vortex of energy. I'm not sure everyone knows this idea. A vortex is like an inverted pyramid.
It's like a whirlpool.
Yeah, it's like it's like the eye of the hurricane. In other words, there is a spiritual energy power point that draws everything to it. It's actually how gravity works. The way gravity works, as Einstein explained, is when you have a large mass, so it exerts a gravitational pull. That explains our planetary system. Why? Because the sun is the largest mass, and it exerts a gravitational field that pulls the Earth and all of the planets into a orbit around it. That's how gravity works. But it also works on a spiritual level, that Israel is, and this is the paradox. The paradox is that Israel, you can barely see it on the map. It's like if you blink, you can't see it.
It's true.
It's such a small place. Like I explained, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Syria, Jordan, but when I look the other direction on a clear day, I can see Haifa and the Mediterranean Sea. So
Tiny Israel.
it's like, it's a tiny, tiny country, but it is infinite in the power and the energy that is emanating from here. It's always been like this. So it is a vortex of energy, the whole land of Israel. And then according to our tradition, it becomes even more intense in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the heart of the land of Israel. And it becomes even more intense on the Temple Mount. And then it climaxes, in a sense, in the Holy of Holies that was in the middle of the temple. And it's like an onion. It's like radiating levels of power that is drawing people, energy, prayers to the Holy Land. So in a spiritual way, this explains why in the material world, Israel is so important, other than the fact that it's on the caravan routes. Today, these caravan routes are immaterial because of the global village that we live in. So you would say, okay, the world has changed. Israel would no longer have the same central focus. But I think it's even more now. It's even more intense, the spiritual pull. And according to our tradition, that is what's drawing Jews back to Israel now. Every year, and I'm sure many of the listeners know this, on Sukkot, there's what's called the March of the Nations, where tens of thousands of mostly Christians come to Israel to celebrate Sukkot, which is a Jewish holiday. But in the prophecies, it says that when the redemption comes, people all over the world will come to celebrate Sukkot in Jerusalem. So every year there's this amazing March of the Nations. I've been there a number of times, where people from different countries, delegations, march with their flags, and many
Costumes.
times their native dress, and singing in all kinds of languages, their love of Israel. And this is indicative of the redemption that we're looking at, because despite what many people think, the Jewish concept of the Messiah is that, in other words, to fulfill the job description of the Messiah, ultimately he must bring peace to the entire world and bring everyone together in the belief and the love of one God. That is, until someone does that, then they're not the Mashiach, they're not the Messiah. So we are waiting for the global village that we're all experiencing now in the physical level. What's amazing is, if there's a hurricane, let's say, doesn't matter where, Indonesia, or a tsunami, even 150 years ago, no one would even know about it. And if they learned about it, it would be 3 months later, 6 months later, six
Right.
years later. Now, within a matter of seconds, everyone knows what's happening all over the world. And this is not happening what we call stam. It's not a coincidence, and it's not just happening just by coincidence. This is setting the scene for redemption. The global village that we're experiencing physically with iPhones, with TVs, with email, with WhatsApp, with Zoom, all of these things is bringing people together, but that's on a physical level. What we now have to do is we have to bring people together of different faiths, different belief systems, to come up with the common denominator that unites all of us as human beings. And according to our belief, that common denominator is one God. That is the banner that will bring us all together.
So beautiful. So I can't stop smiling. My face is going to start to hurt. As you're talking about Israel, as you're showing if people don't understand it in their, in their body and their cells and their nervous system, just come and see and feel. It's like everything is, you talked about the vortex being an inverted triangle. So the let's say mainstream news or a political conception of Israel is inverted. It's exactly inverted. Like it is necessary for the redemption, for the upliftment, for peace, for healing of all mankind, that this process continue of Israel's children coming back to Israel and shining light to the entire world. And we welcome the nations. We welcome you to celebrate with us, to visit us. There are many people here who even live here, although I don't want to get into that. It's a little bit complicated, but it's just there's something here. It's in a different, well, maybe you can speak to that. I was told that Israel is actually in Olam HaYetzirah. It's a different level of reality. There's a different dimension of reality that is actually present here. Do you have anything to say about that, or is that a source you're not familiar with?
No, yes. Maybe one of the most symbolic of all of the dreams that are recorded in the Bible is the dream of Jacob, who saw a ladder connecting heaven and earth, and angels going down and up the ladder, and he had a vision of God at the top of the ladder. So this symbol of the ladder connecting heaven and earth is really the role that Israel plays, because we have the tradition that why does every Jew, when they pray, they turn towards Jerusalem? And it's based very much on this dream, because after Jacob wakes up, he says, this is the gate to heaven, and this is the house of God. And so our tradition is, no matter where we are on the planet, and we turn towards Jerusalem, and truthfully, even if you're not physically turned towards Jerusalem, that because of this vortex, that all of the prayers, they don't go straight up, as it were. We're talking in symbolic language. They all go horizontal to the Temple Mount, and that's where they ascend. And that's this idea of the vortex, that all the prayers in the world are being funneled, are being drawn to the Temple Mount, and that's where they ascend like a ladder. So Israel is, and this is a very important thing I'm going to say, is that many times when we talk about the Holy Land, we think in very spiritual terms. Holiness is very, very spiritual. But the secret, and I'll call it even the paradox, of the holiness of the land of Israel is that the rocks are holy, the trees are holy, the lake that I'm overlooking, and I hopefully the viewers were able to see it, is holy. In other words, this is one of the main missions of the Jewish people, is to take the physical reality and to infuse it with spiritual content. And that's connecting heaven and earth. That's the ladder. We don't deny the physical and we don't deny the spiritual. We unify them together. And this is actually the meaning of the symbol of the Star of David. Excuse me. 1 second. The symbol of the Star of David, the Magen David, you have one triangle going up and one triangle going down. These are diametrically opposed symbols, but they're interlocked together. And that is, the soul is interlocked with the body. The physical is interlocked with the spiritual. This world is interlocked with the world to come. And all of the dualities of this world. Our purpose is to see beyond the duality and see the unity behind everything. That is the cardinal statement of faith in Judaism, is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. But we experience the world as very dualistic. Everywhere you go, we see opposites, everything. And yet, our mission is to climb that ladder and connect heaven and earth.
It's phenomenal. I just lost sound. Oh, okay, we're good. I guess we're good. Okay, really, truly phenomenal. And I didn't realize before I got on, actually, that this aspect of what's happening here right now, that the radiance of Israel is through your words and through where you are. I mean, I'm in Jerusalem, very close to the Temple Mount, but 1.5 kilometers, I think, or 2 kilometers away, but you can't see it from, you see the books and the plant. But the view that you showed us, just the radiance of the whole thing and what you're encapsulating in your words is spreading forth to the world. So I actually have 2 questions that right now to address, whichever order in any way you choose. One is to explain how the light that is meant to emanate from here into the world, how that works, like the idea of Kimitzion Teitze Torah, from Zion will come forth Torah, Devar Hashem Yerushalayim, the word of God from Jerusalem, about that. And then maybe it is related to the fact that you said earlier that we have one step in Geula and one step still in Gullus, in exile. So I'd like you to speak to that as well. And what is the movement that you see must take place for us to have all of us in Geula? That's what really this is about.
Okay, dynamite questions. Let's address the idea of the light of Israel that needs to emanate to the whole world. Is Isaiah put it as condensed as possible, that the mission of Israel is to be a light to the nations. But the question is, how does that work? And that really is through the Torah. The Torah is the light that we need to emanate. You quoted the verse that from Zion will come forth Torah to the whole world. That is the light that we have to spread. That's why we call Torah light. We call the Torah light. So what's interesting, on the first day of creation, the word light is mentioned 5 times. And we're told that represents the 5 books of what's called the Chumash, the Torah. So that is the light that we have to share. And like I said before, it works like gravity. Is in a sense, the more Jews that are in Israel, the more intense the mass becomes. And that's why we're told prophetically that when a majority of Jews in the world are back in Israel, it will change the equation, the spiritual scales in the world. It's been 2,500 years since the majority of Jews have been in Israel, already by the first temple.
Wow.
We never had a majority of Jews coming back to Israel. And in fact, for most of that time, we had a very small minority of Jews being in Israel. And so that is why every prophet said the same thing, is that part of the redemptive process must not include, but it begins with the ingathering of the exiles. That is what we are experiencing. And so the more of the ingathering happens, the more that light begins to shine. Now we see it certainly in the material world. It is absolutely astounding the technological advances that are coming out of Israel now, whether it's water irrigation, whether it's solar power, whether it's medical advances, technological advances, communication advances. But this is happening for a reason. It's happening because the mass of Jews is getting stronger and stronger.
When you say mass, you mean like the density, like the weight, the magnetic collective.
Literally quantity. The
Wow.
quantity of Jews is actually leading to a quality of the light. And so then getting to your second question, you said, well, so what has to happen to get both feet in the world? And I think what has to happen is, along with all of these technological advances that are spreading waves all over the world, we need to spread the light of Torah to the whole world. That is what will bring us into the redemption, because it's like using the ladder metaphor again. If we're only at the bottom of the ladder, meaning in the material world, we haven't connected heaven and earth. We haven't connected physical and spiritual. So along with all of these amazing technological advances, which are helping people all over the world, there's literally millions of people now who are able to feed themselves, who are able to get clean water, who are able to get energy because of what Israel is doing. And it's we don't have a Peace Corps, but there are representatives of Israel in countries literally all over the world spreading this knowledge, which is making life so much easier for people. But we need to now also spread the light, the morality, the ethics, the spirituality of the Torah to the whole world.
So it seems that we are actually doing that at this moment, at least.
Yes, absolutely.
To a certain degree, it's a start.
I'd say to a great degree.
Mm.
Not just even, this is a big thing. And I want to applaud you and your whole team for putting this together, because seminars like this, obviously it would be great if millions of people were watching it, but it makes an impact. Every person makes an impact. So whoever is out there viewing and listening, we will create the redemption. We need a critical mass of people who want to bring peace and harmony and love and godliness and holiness to the world. That is what will bring the Geula closer. And again, our center, our light is the Torah. That is what gives us the right to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, is the Torah itself.
It's so true. So true. So I think what I want to ask you next is there something specific that people can do who are listening? I guess one of the things you can all do is to spread this, to share this on your WhatsApps, on your Facebooks, to tell your friends to tune in, to sign up for the Global Geula Summit. And by the way, if somebody shared something with you on social media and you're not signed up, you can sign up for free right now at www.globalgeulasummit.com. And there you will find the replays of all these calls. You'll find access to listen live by phone or by audio, by conference line, or by video. So yeah, that's really advised. And to me, it seems that anybody who is sharing this light that's coming forth from Israel right now with anybody is actually helping to be part of the fulfillment of that prophecy that of being a light to the nations. Even if you're part of a nation and you're sitting in that nation, by connecting to this light and sharing it, you are spreading light to the nations yourself. Would you agree with that, Rabbi Trugman?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, when it comes down to it, we're all individuals. And there's only so much an individual can do. Many of us would like to save the whole world. And we think about, well, how can we save the whole world? We can only do it in our real lives with the people that we interact with. But that makes a difference. Many people kind of lose hope of changing society or the world because I'm just one person. What can I do? Especially as there are more and more people in the world. And ironically, paradoxically, the more we become a global village, I think everywhere people are feeling lonelier and, in a sense, more disconnected, which is very paradoxical because we're more connected than ever. You know,
So
everyone's got 1,000 friends on Facebook, but I don't have anyone to talk to. Right? It's in a sense, it's a bit superficial. And
it can be.
Yeah, it can be, for many people, we're sacrificing intimate human relations because of all these devices that allow us to connect, but it's somewhat superficial. But that will take me to a different subject. What I'm trying to say is, each person can only do what they can do, but they have to believe that it's important. Everybody has to believe that in their circle of friends, their community, their thought process. It's a very, very important concept in Judaism that thought makes a difference. Speech makes a difference. And of course, action makes a difference. So everyone shouldn't be discouraged by the state of the world, which can be very discouraging sometimes. We look at the world and it's like, how in the world are we going to get both feet into Geula? When you look at the world, it's like, but what gives me hope is we see all of the prophecies being fulfilled.
So true.
Jerusalem being rebuilt, the desert turning green and productive, and the cities of Israel being rebuilt. And one of the prophecies is that when Mashiach comes, the voice of the groom and the bride will be heard in Jerusalem again. So like every wedding you go to is, in a sense, a fulfillment of prophecy. That is what gives me hope, because I see there's a bigger picture unfolding here. There's a bigger picture, and the question that everyone has to ask is, am I going to plug into that, or is it going to go like one in one ear and out the other, or like just go right over my head?
Yes.
There's something very great, awesome happening here. and in the world, the changes in human lifestyle in the last 100 years are breathtaking. 100 years ago is more like 120 years ago. I mean, we're before electricity, before planes, before everything that we just take totally for granted. In 120 years, the planet has been changed to such a degree, it's almost like science fiction. If you would tell a person 120 years ago what's happening today, they absolutely would not believe you. They would not believe you. That's part of a process. It's not just because people got smart and started making machines. That's not what's happening. What's happening is redemption is coming to the world. And us returning to Israel, and Israel becoming the powerhouse that it is, and the technology in the world is all part of this very same process, and that is redemption. And so we have to have faith, because the process is unfolding, and we need to kind of fit in there and do our part to try to hasten it in any little way that we can.
Yes, agreed and amen. And there are a lot of beautiful comments that people are actually submitting on Facebook, including somebody who said that he was among the original people who initiated that the March of the March of the Nations that you talked about on Sukkot, on Sukkot. So
okay.
I am having a hard time with comments. I'm looking off the screen because I needed Debbie to. I'm not seeing the comments on my own Facebook for some reason. So if you would like, I could share some of those. And that would be Mervyn Merla Watson. We're the ones who initially organized the Christian Internationals to march during Sukkot. Beautiful. It's amazing.
Yes.
And by the way, just commercial interruption. If people are having trouble, certain computers are having trouble with the Facebook feed. So we will have the video up by tomorrow morning as recording, the audio probably within an hour after this call. So if you're having trouble with the video feed, just go to the audio. You can call in the conference line. It's just an extra way for people to connect, and it does allow us to actually get much more intimate, and also much more intimate with this holy land. So that said, I'd really love to ask you, what other things the Torah says about Israel? What are the prophecies about Israel? What share with us, and why do you think the whole world is, when I say the whole world, I mean in a general sense, obviously there are lots of holy individuals that aren't part of that, that collective, but so much of the world, it has fostered hate of Israel, as you mentioned in the beginning. And what's that about? And what do the prophecies say about that?
Okay, I'm going to address a new level of understanding the Holy Land now.
Good.
And this is a very, very, very important one.
Try to speak up.
We're kind of going through the ladder now. We're going up the ladder, where we started with understanding why Israel has been so important, very material. And then we understood through the idea of a vortex. Now I'm going to go even deeper. It's like, well, where is the vortex coming from? Why is it? So there is a verse in the Torah that says the following in English. It's talking about the land of Israel. It's in the book of Deuteronomy. And it says about the land of Israel, it says it's a land that God seeks out. The eyes of God are on it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. This is an incredibly important verse. The eyes of God is a metaphor for God's divine providence. Obviously, God's divine providence is everywhere. Everywhere, not just on earth, everywhere in the universe. But this verse is telling us, and actually one of the commentaries, Rashi, even asked the question, doesn't God overlook everything? Isn't God's divine providence everywhere? What does it mean? The eyes of God are on it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So the example that it's brought is that when someone is looking at something and focused on it, they still have peripheral vision, meaning the eyes of God are on Israel, and everything else that is happening is the peripheral vision.
Wow.
That is what causes the vortex of energy. And now I'm going to explain one other thing, is that what does it mean, a holy land? What does holiness mean? So in the strict sense, the word for holy in Hebrew means the same thing as to separate or designate or choose. Something becomes holy because it's designated to be holy. It's chosen to be holy. This is very much like God's eyes are on it. So what I'm going to explain now in like 2 or 3 minutes really needs a lot more time, but I don't think we have all the time in the world.
No, but we can have more than 2 or 3 minutes if you would like 5
okay,
or whatever.
okay.
This is fascinating. Much of this I have not heard before, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Shockingly.
So what we're going to see now is an amazing thing to explain really the holiness of Israel, is that there are certain things in Judaism that we call holy. We call the Shabbat holy. Shabbat Kodesh. That's why when a lot of people, when they eat on Shabbos, they say L'kavod Shabbos Kodesh, for the honor of the holy Shabbat. We call Israel holy. We call the people of Israel Am Kadosh, a holy people. We call Jerusalem Ir HaKodesh, a holy city. We call Hebrew a holy language. But so what's the common denominator? We don't call everything holy, and actually in potential, everything is holy. But there's certain concepts, which I just mentioned, that we actually call them holy. And what we'll see, the common denominator is that God chose all of them. Let's go through it quickly. In the story of creation, it's clear that the 7th day was designated as being something special. In fact, that's the first time that the word holy appears, is with Shabbat. In other words, God designated the Shabbat to be special, separated from the other days of the week, something unique. God chose Abraham. And that's why we're an Am Kadosh, because God chose us. Where did God send Abraham? To Israel, because he chose this place. Why didn't he send him to Hawaii or Australia or Poland or Argentina? He sent him to a specific place because he had chosen this place. And then in the land of Israel, God chose Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. So all of this is connected to the idea of the eyes of God are on it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. In other words, the power, the holiness, the energy of Israel is coming from God's choosing it. That is what makes it special. That's what, in a sense, creates the vortex. And then that filters down to the material world as Israel being in the center of the world. So it's like a ladder. We're like going up the ladder as to the real causes of it. So the Holy Land is holy because God chose it. And it's the same thing with us. Let's say a place of worship. Why is a place of worship felt to be different? Is because that community has chosen that place is where we come together and we worship God. So therefore, in Jewish belief, a synagogue has actually, according to Jewish law, has certain laws attached to it because we designated it to be special. So this is explaining at a very, very deep level the basis of the holiness of the land of Israel.
Mm.
Now, your other question is of course, an extremely difficult question, and I've explored it in at least one of my books. Is where is all of this hatred coming towards Israel? I would call it a love-hate relationship. I think that when we look in the Torah, we have the story of Jacob and Esau, the two sons of Isaac. And according to tradition, the Rome comes from Esau, and from Rome comes Christianity. Because if the Roman Empire would not have institutionalized Christianity, it would have been a different religion, and world history would be very, very different. So we're told that the whole story of Jacob and Esau is an archetypal love-hate relationship that has accompanied Christianity and Judaism throughout history. And it's more than just Christianity and Judaism. I think it applies the story of Ishmael and Isaac. These are archetypal stories that the energy is present in every generation. I truly believe that at some point, our best friends will be Christians and Muslims, because there is a love-hate relationship there. And I believe that that's what redemption will come to solve, is we'll get out.
We just lost your video, Rabbi Trugman.
We lost you. I don't know why. One second. I'm going to just ask my wife for some technical assistance here on my phone, okay? Just wait one second.
So you guys, I'm trying to read your comments on Facebook and seeing some of them on the conference call. Yes, okay. Let me see if we're back. Okay. Yes, we're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Did you see the view?
Yes, we did. I did a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
My wife wanted to make sure we saw the view.
Yes, maybe you want to show us once more. Is the light more conducive to see Syria?
No, it's pretty much the same.
The light is incredible. There's no glare at all. Can you see that?
Yes.
The whole Sea of Galilee. You see it? There's Tiberias.
Yes, look, take us over the fence or inside the fence. Yeah, there we go. That's the Sea of Galilee.
Okay, there we go. That's it.
Okay.
Someone's hand. Okay.
We're back.
All right. Great.
We're just plugging in the phone again. Okay, we're good.
So we were talking about the love-hate relationship and how it's beyond just Jacob and Esau, just the Christians and the Jews, beyond the Muslims and the Jews. That's what you were speaking into.
Right. So this is an incredibly important point for everyone who's watching or listening, is all the stories in the Torah are archetypal. Mm. Archetypal means that the story, what it appears to be a simple story that's taking place a long time ago, is not just a story of a long time ago. Every single story, archetypal means that the energy repeats itself in every generation and actually in every person. So it's very, very important when people read the stories in the Bible that they realize that these are highly, I call it symbolic, but it's more than symbolic. It's archetypal, meaning that these energies are describing life today. And we have to learn to translate these stories into our very lives today.
And I do want to bring out, I mean, that's very powerful. I want to bring out also to make sure everybody understands Rabbi Trugman's not saying that the stories didn't happen. They did happen. You just saw
Oh,
some
yes.
of the geography on which they happened, but they also happened as part of a cosmic paradigm, that
Yes.
that archetypal idea that applies. We introduced the word fractal yesterday, that applies on a fractal level to every human being, to the conflicts and reconciliations between nations, to cosmic forces, everything. So yeah,
Absolutely.
really, really important to know that. That's why we call it
Yes.
cosmic Israel.
Yes. Yes.
Everything that happens here, I mean, everything that happens anywhere, that's the truth. Anything that happens in you, in your life, in any aspect of it, but certainly anything that happens here, which is that ladder, the portal between heaven and earth, has cosmic reverberations on every level of life, universe, creation, spiritual, physical, everything. So what we do now, I think, is more important than maybe it ever was before. What we know, what we connect to, which is really why we're doing this. Okay.
Yes.
So please continue. You're talking about the archetypal pattern.
Well, truthfully, I said, if you have a further question, I try to give over the idea.
It's very, and I'm assuming that this would be your answer also to the question of rising anti-Semitism. Would that be the same? Would you have the same answer?
Yes, I think as Israel's power and stature and standing in the world increases, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction on the physical level and on the spiritual level.
Right.
So,
which comes from the spiritual.
Yeah. So as, listen, for 2,000 years, people got used to Israel being the victim, being powerless, being pushed around, being decimated, taken advantage of. It's, even though it's the state of Israel is in existence now for over 70 years, the world is still getting used to Israel not being in the same position that it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people are not taking it well and have not quite learned how to adjust to the new reality. So I think that fuels a lot of anti-Semitism, is that people just don't understand Jews as being powerful and influential. And I mean, we've always been powerful and influential, but it was never so overt. That's why, like, for example, everyone knows this statistic that 25% of all Nobel Prize winners are Jewish. It's just like the world is getting used to that, is trying to deal with, but it's happening in individual countries. You have countries that have 30, 40, 50,000 Jews in the whole country. And the amount of influence that they have, whether it's economic or political or legal or the arts or the sciences or whatever, is just like so out of proportion that people are like, well, what's going on here? Why there's only like 40,000 Jews in the whole country? Why do they have so much influence? So for some people, that's okay. For other people, like, whoa, we don't like this. There's something wrong here. And I think that fuels a lot of anti-Semitism. We could call it jealousy or just confusion. Confusion is like, why do the Jews have so much power? Why should they have so much power?
Right. Well, yeah, we're on the border here. We're on the boundary of a discussion that I don't even know if we should try to have right now. I know, but maybe it should be introduced. And that the idea of a spiritual war, the idea of, you can find there's a spiritual, there's something very subtle going on here in the relationship between the world and the Jewish people and Israel, and the Jewish people's name is Israel, and the land of Israel is named Israel. That we didn't make that up, that comes from the Torah. And what is that? And maybe we can speak to that. There are also some listener questions. And I know you have a meditation to share, and we agreed that we wouldn't stay on super long. But I guess I want to just bring to the table, since we're like right on the boundary anyway. So you see that one of the most popular anti-Semitic perspectives is that Jews are running the world. And that's actually a reason that people use to hate, to justify, horrible acts against Jews. And that's been the case from the very beginning of the exile of the Gullahs, that people have said that, and that's been the excuse for the pogroms, and that's been the excuse for the Holocaust, and, incalculable tragedy and violence and horror based on that. And yet, at the same time, the way you're describing it, and it's definitely the way you're describing it is accurate, that in this level of chosen, or what we call holy, which I like to describe because I think it's easy to understand and relate to, that the Jews were chosen or agreed, are the souls, the collective souls of Israel that agreed to be the carriers of the Torah and the incubators of the Torah in all of these crazy situations throughout the thousands of years of Gullahs and persecution. So what this point, to me, sometimes I think, and I don't think I've ever said this in public before because it's so touchy, but I'm going to say it now because I feel that you're going to be able to speak to it. So there is something about when people sense that the Jews, like when they'll say the Jews control the world, it's not like the Jews, it's not, our mission is not to control the world. And who are we? And, do we have the power to do that? But our mission is to something in the world. And it's something very powerful because it has to do with the world's destiny. And it's a little bit misaligned. Maybe it's a lot misaligned in certain ways. Maybe now, and maybe not so much. But anyway, do you understand what I'm asking you? There's some core of truth. Okay, there's some core of truth, but it's a misaligned, distorted truth. And again, it's everything turned over. It's is Israel like the occupying, violent country, or is the world wishing on an unconscious or superconscious level for Israel, whether the nation of Israel or the land of Israel, to rise to its destiny, to take its true form? And until then, it's like just bash, you want to control. But the inverted form of that seems to be like, please, like, live your destiny, do your mission. We were waiting. So if you answer that, I'm going to go to a few listener questions and we'll do the meditation. But yeah,
okay. So the truth
listening.
is, you said it probably better than I could. You said it very, very. It's very sensitive. It's very paradoxical. Extremely paradoxical, because number one, we don't run the world. Because if we ran the world, I would hope that the world would not be in the mess that it's in. So no, we do not run the world. That we're influential, that we have what to contribute, that we have a basic desire to rectify the world, to bring light to the world, to contribute to the world. These are absolutely true. But the idea of ruling the world, in other words, if Jews come up with all these inventions or contributions for medical research or everything, that's influencing and contributing. That's not exactly running. But on the other hand, we do have a mission, and that mission is most certainly to be a light to the nations and to bring redemption to the world. We have a mission. And since you mentioned it, our name, Israel, the Torah actually explains what the word means. When Jacob was given this name, the Torah explains that you have contended with God and man, and you have prevailed. So it became the destiny, the fate of the Jewish people to struggle throughout history, to struggle against darkness, against intolerance, against slavery, against hatred, all of these things, and to fix an unrectified world. But the Torah understood that this would take incredible amount of struggle. And this is exactly how history has played itself out. The name Yisrael means to struggle. And so we struggle for our survival, and we struggle spiritually to bring the world and ourselves as individuals and as a nation to the place that we're supposed to be. To be holy and spiritual is a struggle, because we live in bodies, we live in a very material world, we live in a world that is full of temptations, and it would be naive to think that one could just be good and moral and ethical and holy without struggling to get there. So that's why, again, the archetypal name Israel represents all of humanity. Of course, it represents the Jewish people, but all people. Who doesn't need to struggle or doesn't have moral struggles or ethical struggles or struggles with things that we should or shouldn't be doing? Or this is humanity. So the name Israel is really archetypal for all of humanity.
So this is creating a very deep kind of almost deeply emotional sense in me. And I think this is what I want to say to every listener. So people who join a summit like this are people who have some sense of purpose, whether it's like, I wish I could know my purpose and I wish I wasn't so frustrated in living my purpose, to like, I'm ready to go, just open the gate to like, whatever it is, it's not the average level of what we could call awakeness or spirituality of the average human being on the planet today. It's more like the cutting edge. I want to say that when a person, so this applies to everybody here, and it certainly applies to Israel, the people of Israel, people who are carrying a spiritual mission in a more conscious way, whether it's flowing freely or whether it's frustratingly blocked, have been given a tremendous amount of power to make a difference in the world. I'm speaking to everybody here. A tremendous amount of power from above to make a big difference in the world. And sometimes in this course of struggle, it wouldn't actually be a struggle if it was easy and people always succeeded. Sometimes, it's like a game, like a wrestling match where the opponent has you down and you have to dig in deep to your hidden power to like turn it around. And that's really what we're destined to do. And that brings out more of the power. That brings out miraculous levels of the power. And sometimes, we can see with people who have a deep lineage or who have some kind of gifts or powers that they've been given. Sometimes instead of being on purpose, that power is hijacked and distorted and used for the wrong thing, used on the wrong side of this spiritual war. And so I really think we need to bring that to the fore. It's also an archetype. So when we see that happening, we need to pray, we need to connect, we need to see where that's happening within our own being. Because there certainly are people from this nation who are not awake to the pure level of their purpose and are using that divine power that we are all given, not in the best way, let's leave it at that. And that's something that we're all, rather than looking at individuals, not that I'm saying anyone was doing that here, but it's so important. I'm just feeling this is coming to me now as I'm speaking, that it's utterly, crucially, pivotally, foundationally important for us to start looking at for those things that we see wrong in the world inside of ourselves, for where we are not living our purpose, for where something about our purpose or the frustration of our purpose is leading to distortions, leading to anger, is leading to things that really in our deepest self, we know we're not here to do. We're here for something else. And I really just want to bring that to the fore for everybody. I think it's the bottom line. Like, who are you being in the matter? And when you see, and the Baal Shem Tov talks about this, when you see something in another person that really annoys you or that really triggers you, look for it in yourself. Because if it wasn't in you on some level, whether it's expressed or repressed, sometimes it's repressed, you wouldn't be annoyed by it. You wouldn't be triggered by it. So rectify it in you, and you will start to erase it in the world as a whole, in that cosmic ripple effect. Did you want to say anything?
Absolutely.
Or should I go straight to a question? Okay, so here's a question from Ruth Akira, who's actually been in my programs. Hi, She writes, I've been to Israel twice in my lifetime, and both times I came home spiritually on fire. Recently, a local Reform rabbi had a class about how the Jewish denominations were formed. It seems to have started around 1850. It made my heart sad. Every time I pray for the unity of the Jewish people first. I've been praying about putting unity messages in the local Jewish paper. Also, I've asked local rabbis to teach B'nai Noach. These are the B'nai Noach principles. I'll ask you to explain that to non-Jews, but to no avail. To my understanding, no one is even familiar with this terminology. Any comments? Any comment, Rabbi Trugman? What are the B'nai Noach principles, first of all, just in a nutshell?
Okay, these are 7 what are called universal commandments that are part of the Torah, that according to Jewish belief, that before Abraham, there was a sort of universal religion based on these 7 principles, and that everyone in the world, from a Jewish point of view, is, in a sense, bound and encouraged to keep these 7 commandments. Most of them are simply moral and ethical: not to murder, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to worship idols. And there's 7 of them.
Not to be cruel to animals.
Yeah, cruelty to animals, to set up courts of law, and not to profane God's name. The 7 commandments that have sub-commandments connected to them. And this has really been part of Jewish belief forever. But in the last 20, 30 years, it has started to be promoted more. And many, many non-Jews who want to connect to Israel, but do not want to become Jews, or don't feel they have the energy or the mission to do that, but want to connect to the Jewish people, have started to join this movement of keeping these 7 mitzvot. Anyone who's interested can go online and just put the 7 Noachide commandments, and you'll come up with many, many websites that can fill you in greater about this.
Noahide, as in Noah, who was the
basically
the father of all mankind.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the Torah, when I say the Torah is for everyone, it's not just a phrase. It's the truth. The reason that the world doesn't know about this is because the world, no offense those of you who are not in that part of the world, but the world's been busy killing us off. And specifically for learning Torah ourselves and practicing Torah ourselves, much less trying to share it with them. So times have changed, and this is one of the most astounding fulfillments of prophecy that we're seeing in work in progress, that those cultures, nations, and religions that basically were killing Jews on principle for millennia are now supporting Jews and supporting Israel to a certain degree. And some of you to an extreme degree, and we thank you, and we love you, we appreciate you. And we're all in it together. The Torah is for everyone, and when everyone connects to the Torah, there will be peace in the world. Everyone has their place. Torah is for everyone.
God willing.
Geula is for everyone. Okay, so here's just an interesting, I just want to run this by you, and then we can go into the meditation. I don't want to make this super long, but this is just such a cute question, and I'd love to hear you address it. So Jamie writes, critical mass needed. You mentioned that the critical mass is needed of Jews in Israel. Wondering if Israel could accommodate the majority of the world's Jews, I guess being that it's so tiny. Maybe it's just a critical mass that needs to return only. So what do you say to that, Rabbi Trugman?
Actually, again, from where I'm sitting, that is, again, the paradox of Israel. It's a very, very small country, but I can guarantee you it has place for every Jew in the world, physically, materially. There, for example, Beersheba. Beersheba sits in the northern Negev. Until recently, it had a fairly limited population. it has started to grow tremendously. And almost all the cities of Israel and settlements, there's plenty of room. I'll just say it that way. Anyone who comes here and you get out of the Tel Aviv area, which is getting pretty densely populated, but once you get out of Tel Aviv, there is plenty of room for everyone, every Jew to come back home. Not even a question.
Yeah, and even though I'm not the expert on this, and I don't want to address tricky subjects without really understanding deeply, but there definitely is room for some non-Jews to be in Israel as well, but not in a way that is part of the desire, the commitment to try to, as some people say, to push the Jews into the sea and so forth, but to be here as part of the observers of the Torah in the ways that the nations are meant to observe the Torah and so forth. And there's many things that are unfolding now that we all need to know more about, learn more about. The bottom line here, though, is that the Torah was given to bring peace to the world, according to all Torah prophecies, which we'll cover so extensively in this summit. It's unfolding in just completely miraculous ways. Like, can you imagine? People who studied these prophecies waited thousands of years and it seemed like it would never happen. And now it's actually happening. And yes, there's stuff to work out. There's stuff to work out individually. There's stuff to work out collectively. There's stuff to work out cosmically, spiritually. But anybody who wants to be in that process it needs to be in that process. Ultimately, everybody has to be into it because everybody's a part. Anybody who's incarnated in a body in this world today is part of this process, whether they know it or not. So those of us who know it, we need to play a more pivotal role. And that means we need to be on purpose. We need to know, our minds need to understand the truth, which comes from Torah. We need to clarify our consciousness. We talked about that last night. We need to do it in such a deep way that it starts to permeate our emotions. So automatically we feel the things that a clear, clarified, directed, connected consciousness would have us feel. And then, of course, our actions are going to be so much more aligned. And as we support each other, it's going to be way, way, way easier to move forward in the world and to create that leadership that each one of us is here to create. We're all connected to different people, different cultures, different languages, different spheres of influence, different countries, and different backgrounds. And each person who connects in these ways is chosen as a leader to bring it, or as a node in this cosmic organism that's being, awakened to spread that light and divine consciousness and energy to their portion of the world. So we're going to leave it at this. There are other really great questions and beautiful comments, and hopefully we'll get to some of those. Feel free to ask them on Facebook and tag me or anybody else, any of the speakers if you want to. But Rabbi Trugman asked that we not go over the bottom of the hour, so he's going to share a meditation with us so we can all join in that meditation, and we'll end with that. So in case we want to just end quietly, I'm going to be sending a recap email with the links to Rabbi Trugman's music and books. And if you'd like to recommend anything specific that covers this conversation, you can do that in a minute. Also, those links are under his picture, both on the schedule page and on the page that you're probably connecting to now if you're not on Facebook. If you are not signed up for the summit, please sign up at www.globalgeulasummit.com so we can email you with all the updates, the speakers, the free gifts that many of the speakers are offering, and so that you can share with your friends, get on the Facebook community if you feel like it, where we can ask questions. Again, you can tag me. We're having some interesting discussions there, and those can get very much deeper, and that's another way to have community. Last but not least, I'm really meditating and praying during the summit about what's next for the Gate of Unity, and I have some ideas. I don't know exactly how things are going to turn out, but I'd love to hear from you guys. One of the things that I would like to provide, whether immediately or a little bit down the line, are classes on the 7 mitzvahs, and our classes on how everybody can be part of this divine mission to bring Geula to the world. That's what it's about. That's why we're here. Okay, that said, Rabbi Trugman, I Skyped to my husband, so I'm not just saying this. This was phenomenal for me personally. Like the energy that you're carrying, the gravity of your presentation, the love that you have for the land, the love that you have for all people, for the Torah, for the Geula, for this unfolding process is just radiating from you. So I want to thank you very much, and I hope and intend that we'll have conversations like this in the future, not too distant future. Wishing you many blessings on the restoration of your home and your community, for you and for everybody. And thank you for your work. And now if you'd like to just recommend anything specific and take us into the meditation, we'll just leave quietly when that's done.
Okay, I'll take this opportunity to thank you for organizing this. I think it's an incredibly important initiative. I am very, very happy to have been part of it. I really, you know, we make change like one person at a time. So I have to believe that people out there are being moved and enlightened and informed and inspired by this whole conference. And you should go from strength to strength. And I hope to be part of whatever future initiatives you come up with.
It's a deal.
And I just want to invite everyone to come to our website, thetrugmans.com. Thetrugmans.com. And you'll see a wealth of information, audio classes, videos, articles, music, poetry, stories, meditation, you name it. I would hope that people might be interested in our books and our music. We have a bookstore. We send out to everyone in the world incredibly fascinating subjects. And I'm sure if you take a look, you'd be interested. So I want to end with a meditation, and I think I'm just going to take the conversation that we've had and try to turn it into a meditation. There's a concept that Rabbi Nachman spoke about, turning your Torah into tefillah, taking Torah and turning it into prayer, meaning whatever we learn about, that we should translate it into a prayer to be able to activate what we're learning about. So it's not just intellectual, we learned about something, but that we actually turned it into a prayer. So we used the symbol or the archetypal idea of a ladder, connecting heaven and earth, connecting body and soul, connecting physical and spiritual. And we also use this idea of the eyes of God, who's on the entire universe, but specifically the land of Israel. And in the dream of Jacob, so he envisioned God at the top of the ladder. So I would propose a visualization, a meditation, and a prayer, really a prayer, that each one of us is able to make these connections, to be able to, and we could do it right now, is to quietly and eyes open, eyes closed, it doesn't matter, but we can envision the importance of connecting our body to our soul. Mm-hmm. That we can connect call it our secular life with our spiritual life, our work day with our bigger goals, with our personal mission in this world and what God wants from us. From our personal story to the bigger picture that's happening in the world. And it's all this imagery of a ladder, that we are the ones climbing on the ladder, even though in the dream he saw angels, but the angels were really his own psyche, his own neshama, his own soul that was climbing up and down the ladder. So that's how I would like to end, is that each one of us in our own way, and we make it into a prayer, that we could become the ones able to climb up and down the ladder and connect ourselves to God and connect God to the world and connect our souls to our bodies and the physical to the spiritual. Actually, do you hear that music in the background?
I
Yeah,
can't hear what it is though. I just hear music.
it's one of the one of the groups here that likes to promote joy. So they
That must be
drive around.
Breslov. Breslov, the
Yeah,
Breslov truck,
yeah. They drive around in trucks with loud music,
leaning
trying to
out the
bring
windows
joy
and
to
sometimes
people.
dancing on the roof. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll invite everyone to take just a minute or two. I will do it myself, and to try to turn this whole conversation into a prayer, and that we pray that God will assist us to rectify the world. Okay, may all of our prayers be accepted.
Amen.
Thank you again very much.
Blessings to everybody from the holy cities of Tzfat and Jerusalem. Hope to see you here soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye.